Two. Hi everybody, welcome to Suydam Farms. My name's Suydam. Rijk is an old Dutch name, and actually Suydam is Dutch. It means south of the dam. When my family came from Brooklyn in 1663, they landed in Brooklyn, and then in 1713 they moved out here to New Jersey. But landing in Brooklyn, they created that name. New land, new name, Suydam, meaning south of the dam, so that future generations would know where they came from. Exactly how far south of Amsterdam, I don't know. Someday I'll try to go and find out. In any event, welcome. We have about 300 acres here at Suydam Farms. We grow a lot of hay for the horse industry. We also grow wheat and rye, chickens, pigs, lambs, steers. We do a lot of vegetable plants, herb plants, flowering plants in our little greenhouses, and then right before Mother's Day, we turn on the heat in there because I don't want to turn on the heat in that building until I absolutely have to. So come back and see us right before Mother's Day. We have eggs year-round, and so you can come on the weekends for that. We do a little bit in Christmas trees. We'll go out and see those in a few minutes. Oh, vegetables in the summer, and of course, pumpkins. Well, today you're going to get pulled around by a 1946 International Harvester Model M tractor. I need you to pay attention because there's going to be a quiz. Where was I?
Tractor.
Okay, we're sitting on hay today, but the straw is all around the pumpkins, and that straw comes from the wheat that we grow, and that wheat is called soft red winter wheat. So this is the important part. Soft red winter wheat. Okay, farmer, what are you getting at? Anybody here like pizza? I mean, anybody? Okay, good. Soft red winter wheat is used to make pizza dough. It's not great for a lot of breads, but it's excellent for pizza dough. So every Friday night, our house, soft red winter wheat. Okay, we'll get started. My voice is magically going to come out of that black box in the front. If you have a question, please hang on to it. It's kind of hard for me to hear with the engine running. And we'll get started. This is the extent of my technology. Yeah, it's a 70-year-old tractor that works great. That's all the technology I'm good at. Can you guys hear me in the back okay? Great. Oh, last thing, could you pick that thing up for me? Pretty please. Kind of heavy, isn't it? Anybody know what this is before we get going? Squash. It's a kind of squash, right? It is a blue Hubbard squash. You know, the old Mother Hubbard lived in a shoe, had so many kids, didn't know what to do. Same type thing. There are blue Hubbards and there are red Hubbards. The flesh on the inside is orange, just like a pumpkin, and this is what my grandmother used to make pumpkin pies. She made them, I ate them. And she always swore that these made the best pumpkin pies, and grandmothers are never wrong. So if you want to make your own pumpkin pies, I recommend the blue Hubbard squash. The sugar pumpkins are good too. They're a little wetter. That's why my grandmother liked the blue Hubbard squash. Okay, here we go. Hang on to it. People tell me all the time, well, right, don't you farmers want a lot of rain? It depends. It depends on what you're growing. If you're growing corn and soybeans, yeah, they're having a great year. For us, we grow a lot of hay. We want it to rain in the spring, and then we need it to dry up so we can harvest our hay in June and July. But overall, pretty good. I'm not going to complain. The pumpkins did real well with that rain. Now, you folks all came in off of Skillman's Lane. That's the road over there. Now, Skillman's Lane originally was just a driveway. It went from the King's Highway, which is now Route 27, but it was the King's Highway, and it went from there to the Skillman Farm, which is the White House and the Red Barns over there. And that's my parents' house. And the Skillman Farm is all part of Suydam Farms, plural, because in that house, my great-grandmother, Cassie Skillman, when she was a little girl, she grew up over there. My great-grandfather, he grew up over here, Matthew Suydam, in the house that Kathy and I live in. We'll go by that in just a couple of minutes. He married the girl next door. She was an only child. Instant bigger farm. So we farm on both sides of Skillman Lane. Farm goes down about a mile. And a lot of our fields look just like these two on either side of us. Not real exciting this time of year. Actually, these are Timothy hay fields, and we are going to wait till we get a frost, and then they're going to get another haircut and stay dormant until the spring. Then we'll fertilize the end of March, beginning of April, and the hay will jump. It'll go 3.5, 4 feet tall by the beginning of June, and then we start to harvest. We'll cut 10 or 15 acres at a time, let it dry in the sun. You know the expression, you got to make hay when the sun shines. When the sun shines, the hay can be dried. Then we'll bale it up just like the bales you're sitting on. We put it in all these big red barns around it. Now this field to my right is a new planting of Timothy. We just did it, I think Labor Day weekend. It needs a drink. I could use a half-inch of rain on that, fill in some of those bald spots. And that's planted kind of a lot like your own lawn. But we're going to harvest that and fertilize it, and it'll end up being high-end horse feed. Most of our Timothy goes to the racetrack. Now our farm goes back about another 3/4 of a mile and down into those trees. But past it is the 6-mile run reserve. Here in Franklin Township, there's 3,300 acres owned by the state of New Jersey. It's not a park, it's a reservoir site. To build a reservoir, that will never happen. It'll never happen because it leaks. Geologically speaking, it was a mistake. So it's going to stay as a watershed, which is also a good thing, a big filter. The rain falls on this 6-mile run reserve, it works its way down into the aquifer, and it's still drawn out for drinking water. So that's a good thing. But it's also where the deer live. There's limited hunting in the 6-mile run, and the deer are doing just fine back there. And they all know that Wright goes to bed about 9:30. And so they tiptoe up here and get into the pumpkins and into the tomatoes. And last year they developed a flavor for cucumbers. They wiped out my cucumbers, so we keep putting up more fence. If you look at some of these little trees that we have growing here, the deer are beating them up too. They rub them and scratch them and break them. These are black locust trees, and we planted these specifically for their blossom, because in the spring the tops of the trees are covered in white blossom, and the bees love them. They make great honey. We have beehives up here just ahead of us, and we have about another 80 to 100 beehives in the back of the farm, and they're all maintained by Charlie Toth. He's our beekeeper. His name is on the label of the honey that we sell in the greenhouse. And Charlie's from Hungary. And he raises bees just like they did back in Hungary. He always leaves at least 25% of the honey for the bees so they can stay strong. He always shakes his finger when he says, American beekeepers are very greedy. They take all the honey and they feed sugar water. He makes sure he always leaves at least 25%, and his survival rate in his bees is far greater than most of his peers. So we like what Charlie's doing with his bees. Now in this little pasture we have both our sheep and our cows this time of year. Most of them are hiding in the shade someplace. Our steers, we only do 2 or 3 at a time, so they have plenty of pasture. And right now we have a couple of Herefords. We've raised Angus and Charolais, but I like the Herefords. They're pretty docile, they're easy to handle. And when you get a 1,300 pound animal, you want them to be on the docile side. Herefords are also commonly known as whiteface. If you guys come down here later, they'll probably come over and say hi. It's almost feeding time for them anyway. And the sheep, I guess, are up there in the shade too. But they'll come down. They're hamsters. They have black faces and black legs. And most of them are lambs that'll be processed in about 4 weeks. We sell them to folks like you. They go right in your freezer. We send them out to be processed. They come back in little packages, go right in your freezer. The steers are going to be processed beginning of December, and they come back as high-end hamburger. We blend the whole animal, so the chuck goes in with the sirloin, goes in with the porterhouse, goes in with the prime rib, and makes a great hamburger. The steers we processed this spring are in the freezer in the greenhouse. We like to say they're grass-fed but grain-finished. We do use some corn and some barley when we finish them off. This little pasture along the pond, we have the sheep down here in the summertime. They can stay under the trees. This time of year, we try to let the grass recover, and we move the sheep up there with the cows. Now, our pond has some history to it too. The turn of the previous century, there was just a brook that ran through the front of the farm. But my great-grandfather Matthew, the guy I mentioned before, he wanted a pond for fire protection. See, there were no hydrants out here in 1917 when he decided to hire a group of men in Italy. He paid their passage on the boat to come over. They contracted with him to dig the pond. They dug it by hand and also using horses and a drag to excavate the soil from either side of the brook. They piled it up on either side, some in the middle, did some of the masonry work, and built the pond. And once they were done, they had satisfied the debt to my great-grandfather, and they stayed here in America and became American citizens. Very common that day and age in American history. I'm going to stop and talk about our windmill for a minute. We used to have a big wooden windmill, and with a water tank, and it pumped water. That's what windmills generally did. But the wooden structure was going bad, so I had to take it down. But I wanted to replace it. So yes, this is a more modern windmill, and it doesn't pump water, doesn't make electricity, but when the wind blows, come on, blow. All right, anyway, trust me. When the wind blows, there's a little pump behind that fan that goes up and down. And when it does, it pumps air down through a tube and out into the pond. And it bubbles up just like in a fish tank. Helps keep the water clean. We turn on these big fountains when we have company coming. That's you guys. And we're gonna shut them off because they burn a lot of electricity. But when the wind blows, this windmill helps keep the pond clean. Now this is very common in the Midwest and the West, where they do the exact same thing, where they don't have electricity. And especially in the winter when they want to keep the water open for the livestock to be able to get to the water when it starts to freeze over. So the guys in Iowa who sold me this were thrilled that somebody in New Jersey wanted a windmill with an air pump in it. Apparently we're the only ones. So, here we go. Right on cue. We're gonna go out and look at the Christmas tree.
Maybe you guys come here and get a Christmas tree. Little big one.
Last of our Christmas trees. I have grown thousands of trees. I have sold thousands of trees. And I have lost tens of thousands of trees. I started growing trees in 1982. The idea that I was going to corner the Christmas tree market here in Central New Jersey. But I've lost 3 out of 4 trees that I plant, either to drought or to the deer. Take a look at this one. That's what the deer do to a tree. Not even Charlie Brown wants that tree. So it'll probably turn into a wreath or a grave blanket. You can see some of the damage that the deer do. 2 years ago, we had the drought. We lost about 1,500 trees that summer. Very discouraging. So the Lord is trying to tell me something. That don't grow trees here. So we work with a friend of ours who has tree farm in eastern Pennsylvania. It's on a hill. The deer don't bother him there like they bother us here. So we go and cut his trees the day before Thanksgiving. So greenhouse will be full of Christmas trees on Black Friday. Come on back. And when the survivors out here mature a couple more years, we'll harvest these, we'll do some pick your own, and then we're going to turn this field back into a hay field. It's just, I'm not going to fight Mother Nature. Okay, I'm going to take you to the top of the field. I got another story for you. You guys can see this dip in the field. It kind of goes this way. Go right down the middle of it. This is the original road cut for the King's Highway. Remember I mentioned the King's Highway? Well, before it was the King's Highway, it was an Indian path. It went from the Delaware River to the Raritan River. It did a lot of this. White man came, became the King's Highway. And it still did a lot of this. State of New Jersey came along, straightened it out. And when they straightened it out, this part of the King's Highway became part of our farm. And as a small boy sitting on that front porch down there, I was told the stories of George Washington marching his troops between New Brunswick, Princeton, and Trenton and back again 3 times, right through here, right down the King's Highway. And I'm 6 years old. My grandfather would say, if you listen real, you gotta remember, back in 1963, we didn't have all this traffic up here. He said, if you listen real hard on a hot summer night, you can still hear the creak of the wagon wheels, the soldiers as they hoofed it down the highway, and the horses as Washington marched his troops right through here. As a 6-year-old kid, I ate it up. Now over here on my right is another Timothy field we just planted at the same time as the other one, Labor Day weekend. Again, it needs a drink. It's going to fill in some of those bald spots. And that was a rye field for 3 years in a row. We grew it in rye, and then we're rotating back into hay again. Hopefully the Timothy hay will last about 5 years, maybe 7. And then we may rotate into corn, into rye, and then back into hay again. We do that for the soil and to help retain the soil so it doesn't wash away. Crop rotation. But we got all done. I was pretty proud of myself. It came up beautifully. Needs to get another drink, hopefully a half inch or so. But I got this big bald spot down here in the corner. I'm not sure why. There is some seed there. Why it's not growing so well, I don't know. But with the spring, we'll try to replant some of that. I don't want to disturb it right now. Unfortunately, it's right in front of the house. Right outside my bedroom window. Every morning I can get up and look at the bald spot I left for the fish. People ask us about the house quite a bit. And part of that is Dutch history. See, when the Dutch came to America, they built their houses and painted them white. Then they built their barns and they painted them red. They would use red paint on the barns because red paint was cheaper. They put the good stuff on the house. But the Dutch are frugal people. Frugal means we're cheap. They would only paint the house white on 3 sides because you couldn't see the back of the house from the road. Only family gets to see the back of the house. The cheaper red stuff went on the back. If you scrape away the white paint on the old shingles in the back, you'll find red underneath. My dad's house too. Now this end of the house, closest to us, was built around 1760. I had to rebuild this end about 2002 because, well, it really needed it. Really needed it. The fireplace and the Dutch oven, we saved that. That's all still there. The middle of the house, the higher part, was an addition right after the War of 1812, and the far end was built about 1900. Now, a lot of old farmhouses in this part of the world, you'll see a small side and a big side. Well, again, that big side was an addition. Most of them built right after the War of 1812, because farmers in this area made a lot of money selling supplies to the army that were stationed here during the war. So after the war, they took their profits and then built the addition for their families. The Suydam family and the Skillman family both sold whiskey and lumber to the army. And we are out of the whiskey business. Okay, nobody move. It's going to be a quiz. Did I tell you about the quiz?
Yes.
There's a quiz. We're going to see who was paying attention. Okay. I talked about the hay. I talked about the straw and the wheat. What kind of wheat do we grow?
Right?
Something red.
We're getting there. That's a piece of it.
Red, soft red.
Soft?
Soft red winter.
Soft red winter wheat. Very good. I had a group on here for about 8 minutes the other day.
That's an Andrew.
Soft red winter wheat. When that's a Jeopardy question, remember where you learned it. But hard red winter wheat is what you'll get in most whole grain breads. That's grown mostly in the Dakotas and Minnesota and out that way. All right, last bit of trivia, I'll let you go. See the cutout back there? The man and the woman? A lot of farms do it. We're guilty, we did it too. That's from a famous painting. Anybody know the name of that?
I think so.
Andrew, go ahead. Go ahead, Andrew.
American Gothic.
American Gothic, that's right. Usually you see a picture of the portrait. Well, anyway, you can't tell by looking at this one. But the next time you see that portrait, take a real good look at her. Because that is a father-daughter portrait. Everybody thinks it's a father and a husband and wife. It's actually a father-daughter. That poor girl had some hard living out on the plains. A little sunscreen would have gone a long way for her. So, anyway, that's it. Watch your head coming down, everybody.
All right, very good.